people making Monaco take the mic. I'm Nancy Heslin, and welcome to Monaco Info, the podcast. Our guest today started out as a lawyer before co-founding one of the UK's most successful legal recruitment consultancies. But in 2010, the keynote speaker stepped off the corporate treadmill to follow a deeper calling. He retrained in psychotherapy, moved to Monaco, and started Riviera Wellbeing. The therapist became a household name with his popular show Wellbeing Window on Riviera Radio before swapping the bedroom for the boardroom as an executive coach to CEOs. He has since created the new Monaco Business Circle, an invitation-only forum for senior leaders in the Principality looking to maximize their success. Meet Monaco resident Gavin Sharpe. Welcome to Monaco Info, the podcast, Gavin.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I promise I will not use the next hour for personal therapy. I was thinking about this. You must get this all the time, either subtly or not so subtly, of people asking for a little bit of like, can you help me?
It's even worse than that because I have to remind myself if I'm going to a dinner party, I'm there as a guest. No one wants my advice. Nobody wants what I think about their career or their sex life. So not only are they moving seats potentially, I have to remember, Gavin, you're a guest here. Let it go.
But can you turn off your brain? Like, let's say you're sitting beside someone at a dinner table and you've never met them before and they start talking. Does your brain just go into that mode of, oh, geez, there's a lot of work here?
I think no more than yours.
Present company excluded.
I remember that first time I met you. No, I think no more than anyone else does because we all make judgments and we meet someone for the first time, second time, and isn't it fun? We get in the car on the way home and we have a little, did you hear what she said? So I think there's a part of that we all do. I think as a therapist, you really have to have a lot of background information to form a professional judgment. So if I don't know very much about that person, I'm not really thinking about it.
Okay.
Wearing my kind of coach hat, I might hear things which, that's interesting. And instinctively, I might ask a coaching question. I might say, I wonder what's getting in the way of you not doing that promotion. Mm-hmm. And then my husband will give me like a kick under the table, like now's not the time. So yes, you do get used to a way of thinking and questioning.
Okay. Now, we have tried a couple times to get this episode recorded, and every time there has been some kind of work either in the building or around that they've had to cancel. And we came into the studio today. We just want to tell you there's a little bit of drilling or something going on above us. So if you hear that sound in the background, it's not a heart machine. Nothing's going wrong, but there is a little bit of noise today. But we are going to record. So
we're going to do this.
We're going to do this. So first of all, Gavin, do you listen to podcasts? Are you a fan of the platform?
I do. I enjoy podcasts very much.
Let me ask you this then. You were mentioning to me that you said to your father, who's 89, that you were coming on the show, and he didn't quite grasp the concept of a podcast.
Yes, so he's very proficient with the technology, with his email, with his computer, on the internet, but he's never really quite got into the podcasts. So he doesn't have a Spotify account, for example. So trying to actually explain to someone is like someone's just landed from another planet and says, what's a podcast? And I thought, well, I can explain this. You know, I can be articulate. And boy, did I wrap myself up in trying to explain that it's not a TV show, although, you can watch them some of them on
right.
the YouTube, etc. But it's something that you listen to that you don't have to pay for. But, well, some of them are paid for. And, oh, my God, no wonder he was confused. And he said, well, where can I find them? Where can I listen to them? And it's, there's so many of them. Now, where do you start to filter your interests in terms of sports, news, etc.? So, yes, I enjoy podcasts. And what I learned is that I have no idea how to explain to anyone what a podcast is.
Okay. But he's going to listen to yours.
But he's going to listen to this for sure.
I recently saw you at Creme. You were giving a presentation about leadership and business skills and being a CEO and what it takes to be a good leader. And something that you said really stuck with me. When somebody asks you, what do you do? How do you reply?
I will say, it's an interesting question when someone asks me this now. I will say I'm a leadership coach. And then I might say, sometimes I wonder why I have to add this. I say, well, I used to be a lawyer, or I'm also a psychotherapist. And so what I realize is in that sentence, there is so much of our identity. What, if I say this, what judgment might you be making about me? And how do I want you to see me? Because coaching is a very saturated field. From anyone can set up in their bedroom and say, I'm a coach. It's not licensed. You can choose to be a member of a regulatory body, which shows you have an ethical rigor, or you have so many coaching hours. So there's something about me, I think, that there's an element of insecurity when I answer that about, am I happy with that being my identity, and all the things that you might take away from that.
How do people react?
I think generally people are curious enough to then say, what does that mean? What type of coaching, what type of leadership work? Because again, it's a very bland, and that's why I sometimes struggle with it. It's quite a bland statement. And so, some professions, I'm a lawyer. Oh, what type of lawyer? Or actually, when I used to say that, people just leave the room because, So I think usually someone will ask the next question, who do you work with, etc. But I still sit with that, the answer to that question. It's a simple question, but how we choose to answer it does say a lot about ourselves and how secure we are with our identity and how much we care about what other people might assume.
You were born in the UK. Are people, British people, let's say, are they more tied into or hung up on titles than you might find, say, in Monaco or in France?
Yes, I think that's probably true. I mean, don't you think in Monaco, no one really cares? I mean, there's something here about the community of, if you're living here, good for you. And there's just, no one's that interested. I find actually, dare I say, Americans are extremely interested in title and status. And probably I would say, and this is purely subjective from my experience, but the Brits are just behind that, which is just, we're trying to assess, we're trying to place that person.
So that we can determine where they fit into our lives?
Correct. I always think it's fascinating when you meet new people and actually no one asks either during that first conversation or at least in the beginning, and people don't say, what do you do for a living? And I do my best now when I meet people not to say that, because why am I asking that question?
If I may, I just actually think it's something that we do out of habit. I'm not even sure sometimes we're interested.
Yeah.
But I think people are socially awkward sometimes, or they're not sure how to start a conversation. So they go to these, I know I can ask A, B, and C, and, we can start talking about something.
I think that's right. And the British, I guess I've lost that British reservedness, partly because of my career. So my issue is I go too deep too quickly, because actually I'm not that interested in the superficiality of it. In fact, we will often go out for dinner with new people, and then I'll come back and I'll say to my husband, I don't want to see them again. And he'd be like, you're always like this. Why? And I said, because we didn't get anything from them. I didn't learn anything. All they said was, we're going to go out on our boat next week, and we went here but when I try to sort of say, what did you find difficult about living here? Or it must have been hard for the two of you because you're a stay-at-home mum and you've got two kids. Or I'm interested in people, and I'm interested because we all go through, can I curse on here? Or is, we all go through difficult stuff.
Right.
And so if someone's going to keep that hidden and there's no vulnerability, there's no connection. So I'd rather stay home and watch Netflix and be with the dogs, and unless there's going to be some kind of connected conversation. We don't have to give everything away the first time. That's dumping. But I do want there to be some kind of connection, and because then I'll share something and then you'll share something, and then and it becomes a little bit of a kind of vulnerability ping pong game where, it's safe enough. Nancy told me something about her stuff. Let me share something about...
Which we won't share on this particular podcast.
There is so much. But that's the point. We've all got it.
Yeah.
We're all carrying around this baggage from early life. That's part of being human.
My husband will come home and say, I have a new colleague and let's go out to dinner with them and their husband or their wife. And they're so nice. And this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm almost like, I'm not interested in nice. I've been here 25 years. I've met lots of nice people. I want a meaty conversation. I want people that, have done stuff or they're willing to get into a deeper conversation. Like you say, that's what interests me, the human level of connection, not the basics. Yeah, I moved here 20 years ago. Here's my resume. What do you think about it? So yeah, I can't do the nice conversations, but...
But just picking up what you said, I think we're all craving connection in a world that at the moment feels so fragmented. And yes, it's partly social media, it's partly the politics. And so I don't know about you, but I feel more and more disconnected from more and more people. And so that need for connection, I see it in the workplace, especially with the younger generation. They don't want it to be just a contract of I come in, I give you my labor, you pay me, and I go home. They're looking to be seen, to feel valued, especially right now in these times.
Can you take that a little bit further?
So I do a lot of work, as you know, we were just chatting about it before we started a podcast with law firms. And some of these younger lawyers, it's not enough just to do stimulating work. They're working we have a huge generation gap in the workplace. I think we have 5 generations, I think it is, in the workplace. We've never had such a broad range of generations at work. And the younger generation see life, and maybe this is always true, very differently from the older generation. And what the younger generation want is, do you see me? Do you get me? Am I a person? Because if the relationship is as it was when I was a lawyer, much more transactional, I'll go somewhere else, I'll quit. These kids, but compared to me, it's how it feels. These kids have lived through COVID. They've missed out on so much of that socialization. And what they need, even more than perhaps we did from work, is I need to feel valued. I need an identity. I need to know that this is it's a very overused phrase in my world, a psychologically safe workspace. I need to know I can make mistakes. I can be vulnerable. I can talk about being a mom. I can talk about my struggles. So I think all of us are craving that because there are so many things going on at the moment that make us feel so alone and disconnected.
But with the younger generation, what I don't quite grasp, how do they, if they are looking for those things to feel validated, does every workplace provide that?
No, I think it's and I'm slightly skewed because of the type of client base, which is very much banks and corporates. And I think no is the answer. I think a lot of the corporate world is really wrestling with where do I draw the line? Because you come here to make money for yourself and for us. That's a given. So I think then we get into this whole, they want too much and they want to have too many things at work, and then they get labeled woke. And so I think we're all wrestling with, I think corporates are wrestling with, where do we draw the line and where is it appropriate that I can say, I see you, now get on with your work. And so how do we find that balance? And I don't think we're anywhere close to finding that answer. I look at my husband runs a social enterprise. So it's a not-for-profit, but it's a business. And he has a very different approach to, I see the way he coaches and manages his team. I was going to say staff, and then he'd tell me off. And he'd say, but they're not my staff, they're my team, they're my colleagues. So every time he'll start a team's meeting, the first part of the team meeting will be, show me, let's bring our pet. Bring your pet up to the screen because they're often online. So everyone will show the dog for a few. You're not going to get away with that in the corporate world. I can just hear some partners say, put that dog away. It will be an employment tribunal. You mustn't have abused dogs, or I don't know. But I think there is a lot that the corporate world can learn from social enterprises and charities, and vice versa.
I was preparing for the podcast, and one of the things that really struck me is that you were a lawyer, then you went on to have a consultancy firm for lawyers, and then you went on to become a psychotherapist, and now you are a high-level coach to CEOs. In all of these cases, you've chosen a career path that people seek you out for very specific advice. As a young person, was that part of your makeup? Was that who you were as a young Gavin?
It's a really interesting question. And Yes, I think is the answer. I think there was a part of me that probably was desperate to find the connection. So I suspect if I look back at young Gavin, who growing up as a young gay man in a world where I couldn't see role models.
Where did you grow up, Gavin?
In London, but it was a certain parts. I grew up in northwest London. It's a very strong Jewish community. It's very heteronormative. And so I suspect I was trying to find my way to seek connection. So somehow or other, that becoming that kind of, I wore different hats. I'd either be the class clown because that would get applause and get me seen, or I'd be looking to connect people. So I can remember my parents, sorry, Dan, I'm going to tell the story. So they were having some argument. I don't remember what. They would usually over, who left the coffee out on the side. It's, big stuff. So they were having some argument and they were going on a business trip. And I think I would have been about 11 years old. And I remember writing a letter to my mother saying, I think you need to see it from Dad's side. This is what he's experiencing at the moment. And I think this is what's causing him angst. And I said, you can open this on the plane and then you swap letters. And then I wrote the same one for my mother. I can't remember which one around I just said it, but each of them had their own version of, and then they could swap. So each of them could see what the other one was thinking.
I'm sorry, you're how old?
About 11. Now, on the one hand, you can blame my parents because 11-year-old boy should not know what mum and dad are arguing over. But fortunately, it would have been over something very insignificant. But if I look back now, there was obviously something about me as a young child that already taken on that role of rescuer.
Do they remember that moment?
I think so. Yeah.
And were they traveling for business as in they owned their own business?
Yes.
Okay. What were they?
So my father was an entrepreneur. Actually, both my parents were. And so my father had a retail company, a clothes business. So he started that from scratch. So he left school. So was very much the entrepreneur and built that business up. And my mother was both a stay-at-home mum. She was also the rock. She would absolutely was the support that he needed. So if I think in modern terms, coaching, she was coaching him. Mm-hmm. May not have been a professional coach, as happens in most good marriages. We coach each other, so that's not that unusual. So she may not have had an official title or a role, but she was very much alongside him. And then at some point, she also, when we were a bit older, had her own business. So do you remember watching the TV shows Dallas and Dynasty?
I absolutely do. I went to Texas to see the house of Dallas. Yeah. The ranch. Did you?
Is it small, isn't it?
It really was small. I was so disappointed. We're standing at the gate thinking, this is it. Yeah. This is who shot JR. This is what this is all about.
Yeah. So did they tell you with that long drive, we're dating ourselves, by the way, that long drive, they would have to keep filming and filming and filming because the drive is so short from the driveway to the garage. But it looked in the thing like it's a long... Yeah. Anyway, so my mother would watch this program. It was huge in the 80s. And then she used to really enjoy the clothes. And one day she's watching, I think it was Joan Collins wear a sweater. And my mother said, there's nothing over here like that. We should bring this over. And my father said, okay. And cut a very long story short, so another podcast, 3 months later, they became the exclusive distributors of these sweaters that were, I think they might have actually originated in Canada. And my mother then was selling them to Harrods and other places.
You're kidding?
No. So...
Because she saw Joan Collins wear it.
Yeah. And then she's like, I think this would be really good. There's no one...
This may sound like a strange question, but can you actually describe the sweater?
The sweaters would be... They would have a very unique look. I think the product was called Nanelle. And if you Google them, you can actually see them on eBay. So they would either have a down, like say each sleeve would be completely covered in... like beads or foil. There was lots of Angora and silk. So they were very kind of unique. Mm-hmm. And it was in the time of like the high shoulders. And so exactly. So, and she somehow knew enough to say, I haven't seen these here. And in those days, I think I'm right in saying that they retailed for about $300 or $400. And that's, we're going back now to...
A couple of years.
Exactly. And I remember when my mother bought, so then she bought the first one, and I think they nearly got divorced over it because my father was like, how much on a sweater?
Did you ever work for either of your parents when you were growing up, like as a summer job or
Yes.
weekends? And
Yeah, I loved, I mean, again, that's the entrepreneur part of me. So I would work sometimes during my school holidays in my dad's shops, and illegally because, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't have been allowed. I would have been 12 or 13. And I would work in the clothes shops in London, and people would say, so, like, you're very small. I'd say, I'm a midget. You can't use that word now. You have to say height. What's
challenge?
height challenge.
Height challenge?
However, but I loved it, and I learned so much from my father and from that experience of working in a shop with sales, and how someone comes in and has a fixation. I want to buy this color suit, and you haven't got this color or this material, but you want to sell them something. How do you get them to buy? And so the whole psychology of sales, which is something I actually now teach and coach on, I think you only just made me make the connection literally right now, Nancy. I was fascinated by how you can influence someone to buy, not persuade, not unethically, but how do you influence someone who has come in to buy one thing and you haven't got that? You got something that's similar. How do you get them to buy it?
What's the answer to that? It's like being the closer. I mean, you can get people you can talk about signing a deal, but it takes a real gift, I believe, to get someone actually sign that paper.
Yeah.
What's the answer?
What I want to know is, what are your values? What do you believe about this product? Because if I know what you believe, then I know how to pitch, so long as what I have can broadly match that. So there's this famous experiment between Coke and Pepsi, and everybody was blindfolded, and the people, I forget which way around it is, who said, I would only ever drink Coke. And then they preferred, when blindfolded, the taste of Pepsi. So, but there's a belief system about that. So if I give you a practical example, a man comes in and says, I really want to buy a Prada suit. And you don't say, I don't have Prada, so bye-bye, have a nice day. You say, oh, that's interesting. What do you like about Prada? Well, I like the way it's stitched, and I like the way it's very fitting it's a very tailored fit. And you say, okay, well, if you like Prada, I think you're going to like this. Can I show you something? This, if you look at the stitching here and you look at the way this fits, I think, and then at least, again, assuming that you're being ethical and assuming you have something that does that. But what I've done is I've started to tap into your belief system. What do you believe about Prada to be true? Because then I can show you something else.
And you learned that from your father?
Yeah.
So you have some fond memories then of those years with him and your family?
Very much so.
What about the life outside the shop then? Because did you feel isolated in high school? Did you have friends? Did you make friends easily?
I did. And
as the class clown?
And as the class clown. And I think looking back, I would say I was popular and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really the real me. So what I learned from a very young age, because there were huge parts about me I didn't feel comfortable with. So I became very, very skilled at wearing a mask. This is the you that I want you to see. In psychological terms, we call it between a true self and a false self. And I know that the false self will get validated and acknowledged. But if I step out as me into the real world, that might get rejected. That might not be accepted. So if I look back now, yes, I was happy and popular, but underneath it was this realization there was an angst or a sadness or huge amount of shame. And so I think for a lot of us, we then spend whatever our thing is. We've always got something that we don't really want the world to see. And I think the second half of life is about, how can I live a more authentic life? How can I take the risk? Let's go back to our dinner parties, meeting people for the first time. Am I prepared to take the risk and show you more of me than I might have done 5 years ago, because I'm okay with it now?
Then how did you become okay with that? Because as a young person,
Therapy.
That's a lot. You gave therapy to yourself.
No, I went for therapy.
Did you? To be able to let go of the false and embrace the true person. I mean, that's not easy.
No, I think it's life's work. I don't think it ever stops, because we're all walking around with a phrase I use a lot with my coaching clients: the story I tell myself. The story I tell myself is that when I leave this room, Nancy will say, gee, Gavin wasn't very good. I thought he would be, I don't know, whatever it is.
The class clown.
The class clown, and God, he was dull. So we tell ourselves stories. So it's lifetime of work. So yes, I went for therapy in my 30s, and I spent a few years in therapy trying to make sense of.
But Gavin, in your 30s, I mean, this is what I'm saying, that there's years and years there of carrying these two people.
Absolutely. And so no great surprise, in that period, I'm also a workaholic, because like lots of people who are carrying around stuff, it comes out in unhealthy ways. And so it comes out in addiction, it comes out in all different ways that manifest itself. Because if I can't be the real me, I may not realize this, but if I don't get my needs met, eventually, anger builds up, bitterness builds up, resentment, because no one is getting to see the real me, and I'm desperate to be seen. And I used to see clients come into the therapy room with addiction, and what they really want is they're in so much pain. All addiction is about healing pain. I want to go somewhere else, whether it's, doing cocaine or sex or work. There is something else that takes me away from my pain, because if you leave me alone just with me, that's too painful. So I think your question was, what did you do? So it's working on it. And then you
became a workaholic?
Oh, for sure. When I was running my business, that I definitely had an unhealthy relationship with work.
So
it was a great distraction.
You studied law,
mm-hmm.
And what was the draw to that? I mean, you sound like you're a pretty good salesperson. Does that just slide into being a good lawyer?
No, not at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the challenge for most lawyers today is that it doesn't go hand in hand, which is probably why I wasn't a great lawyer. But I went into law because my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, and it was good advice, which is I wanted to be an actor, actually. And don't laugh. And so my mother's probably would have thought, oh my God, another out of work actor. So, and so my parents very cleverly said, well, you can be an actor. You'd be a great actor. You could definitely do acting. First, get a profession. So, spend 3 years at university and then 2 years at law school and then do 2 years training. And then if you want to be an actor, of course you can do it. And I bought that.
You didn't do any acting at all? You just waited?
No.
Okay.
And that also makes me think that if it had really been my calling, to your point, why was I not doing amateur dramatics or something? And I wonder now if actually what I really wanted was just to be on stage and be seen. And because that was something that was missing.
Well, also you were playing so many different roles anyway that maybe that was just part of who you were.
Yeah, quite possibly. So I became
Welcome
a lawyer.
to Nancy's Corner.
Do you charge for this?
No, but I do think that it's easy to be, it's easy to play a role because you're already playing roles, and it would have been an attractive way to make money. And well, I think lots of people want to go into acting.
And interesting, what took me away in the end from my company, there was two things. One, it was always planned that we would grow and build this company. So I started it with another former lawyer in a Starbucks, and then we grew it. There was always supposed to be
the consultancy company.
Correct, my recruitment consultancy. So from law into that. And there was always supposed to be an end game where we would exit. So it was never supposed to be, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life, but that was going to take up to a point. But the other part, which you just made me think about, one of the reasons I wanted to get out was because I couldn't play the part anymore. I didn't actually know how to be a leader and be authentic. How do I stand up at the yearly presentation to 100 staff, across different offices and say, yay, rah, rah, let's go make more money next year, when actually I'm not even sure I can be bothered to make more money next year. And if that's the case, how can I be authentic? How can I be vulnerable? Mm-hmm. And I didn't have that skill set. And I just thought, now is the time to exit. It's a great market. We can exit with some capital, but I don't know how to play. I don't know how to fake being the CEO anymore. I know that I need to go on a different journey. And that was partly what made me exit the business when I did.
If we just take a step back to when you entered law and you joined a firm, were you the type of lawyer that was in court?
So I was a litigator. Mm-hmm. In the UK, most lawyers only get to court because obviously they separate in those days, still largely the case, between solicitors and barristers. Mm-hmm. So you get to go to court a little bit, but I was a litigator. And then I switched firms to give it one more go. I did my training at a global banking law firm, which was so not me. I mean,
I have no words.
yeah,
Okay, go
exactly.
ahead.
By the way, I hadn't even read the prospectus. I mean, they're a very, very, very prestigious law firm, and still are. I hadn't even read the prospectus. So when I got there, and they said, obviously, because we're a banking law firm, I was like, you're what? You're a bank. My first seat was in aircraft finance. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. No, I did international capital markets and aircraft finance. I'm like, okay, well, where's the divorce law? Where do you do the fun stuff? So I did my 2-year apprenticeship training, and then I went to another law firm as a litigator, which was media litigation. And I enjoyed that a bit more, but I was still a lawyer.
I guess the reason I was asking about that is, have you always been somebody confident and comfortable speaking in front of other people? Or was that something you had to learn?
I, again, with the risk of repeating myself, I always was comfortable until the last 5-10 years when I'm doing it being authentic. And then it's much more frightening.
What made you shift then to starting your own company?
Because despite what my parents said, it's not that easy when you leave law. There aren't that many things waiting for you. And you're a litigator. So as a litigator, there aren't that many transferable skills. And I knew I loved sales. Go back to the stuff I'd done with my father. So I went into legal recruitment, which basically is you're selling law firms to your candidate lawyers and vice versa. So I worked for another company for about 18 months. They got acquired. And then I was really hesitant about where do we go from here? Because it was obvious at this point this company was not going anywhere. And my colleague and then became my main business partner. And he said to me, look, if you don't do it, I'll do it without you, but I'm setting up a business. I'm like, okay, don't do it without me. So I was the kind of, at that point, I guess, the reluctant entrepreneur. And we said, okay, let's do this. We know we have a good client base. We'd spotted an opportunity in the market. We could see there was something that others weren't doing. And we said, let's go for it.
Because you ended up creating one of the most successful recruitment agencies for law in the UK.
Yeah, hard to believe, huh?
It really is, really is.
But we did, yeah.
What I'm curious about in that is, what was the key to success? I mean, obviously something switched in your head and you didn't want to do it in the end. But how did you create such a successful environment? How many employees did you have?
When I left, it was about 100.
Okay, so it was the same amount.
Yeah.
How did you create that environment?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question. The key to success. I'm interested in the question. I think it was recognizing that sales boils down to relationships, and what most recruiters are doing, it's like realtors and estate agents. They're just transactional and they're flogging something. And you go and say, oh, I want to have a 2-bedroom apartment. And they say, okay, have a look at this 4-bedroom one that's twice your budget. And you're like, no, you didn't listen to me. And to me, there was some stuff that was really simple that in a very busy market, a lot of our competitors were getting wrong.
Okay.
And actually what I could see our law firm clients wanted was just come and sit on my side of the table, work with me, partner with me. We want to hire a banking partner, or we want to open an office in Frankfurt. Tell me how we can do that. Okay. And so when you start, the business starts to become less about the making of the money, and of course that's there, because if you don't make the money, you don't exist. But the thing I recognized was actually what's missing here is, ironically, human connection, building long-term relationships. Because I think once you have the trust of your client, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. I can phone up a firm that isn't recruiting and say, I know you're not looking, but there's someone I want you to see. Sure, no problem, put them in my diary. But if you don't have the trust and credibility, the answer you're going to get back is, well, why would I want something I'm not looking for? So I think the key to the biggest, for me, I mean, there's so many different answers to the question, was recognizing the power of building good relationships with both, in this case, your candidate lawyers and your client relationships. You've got the trust. And then, hiring and looking after good people.
Your partner, though, must have shared the values that you embraced.
Absolutely. And I'm pleased you mentioned him, because we were a very good team, because where we complemented each other was the things that I was no good at, he was exceptional at, and vice versa, I think. So I we give him as the example. So we started this business. We put our own money into the business. And my partner, Nick, is very skilled detail person. I am not a skilled detail person. Nick costed in the first 2 years what we would pay on postage on mail and stamps.
Wow.
Because there was less email in those days.
Right.
And so he had that on a spreadsheet. And I do remember about, 18 months, 2 years into it. Now we're actually very successful. We hit the ground running. I'm like, Nick, I think you can let that one go. It's okay. If we don't manage the budget on the stamps, we're going to be fine. We have cash reserves. So having someone that complements your skill, I think, is absolutely fundamental.
Did success matter to you at that point? Did you want to create something successful? I mean, was that really part of the goal for you? Or were you just you really weren't sure, let's just start the company and see what happens? Is success important, I guess?
I don't know, is the honest answer. It wasn't about the money, but if the money hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been motivated. So like everyone else, I have a very ambiguous relationship with money. But it wasn't driven by money, but yet there was an end gain of us wanting to build a business that we could exit with. I think maybe arrogantly or naively, I think I just made an assumption that if we're good at this, we'll be successful. Mm-hmm. And success can be both the satisfaction that you're helping a firm achieve its goals, set up its office, helping someone move jobs, and the making of the money. So I'm not sure I ever gave it that much thought.
What about jumping into psychotherapy? Did you have some sort of objective in your mind, what that was going to look like? Or you just felt that was the right time to train?
I felt it. But when I started the training, I had no intention of becoming a psychotherapist.
Okay.
This was just, what am I going to do with my life? Because it's not this. So that was, talk about not knowing how to answer the question, what do you do for a living? I spent the next 2 years saying, well, I used to do this because I didn't know how to say, I have no idea where I'm going. Now I love to say that to someone because it really throws them. But to your question, so I started training to do my 4-year master's in psychotherapy, and I just did it because I thought it would be stimulating. I'm interested in personal growth. I had no intention of becoming a therapist or coach.
You're kidding?
No. And then about 18 months into it, you have to do so many client hours to become a therapist. So I started seeing, as a trainee therapist, I started seeing clients. And it was the first time in my professional career I actually thought to myself, I'm good at this. And the interesting thing is, no matter how successful I was in the corporate world, my father would always have this discussion because he would say, well, why are you getting at now? You're at the top of your game. You're successful. Well, bit of imposter syndrome. Yes, but I'm not really. So I never actually rated myself, even though if I look back objectively, I was a good recruiter. We ran a good business. I never felt it. And suddenly I stepped into an arena, maybe because it was more aligned with my values, where I thought I can make a difference. I like this and I'm good at it. And without the making the difference, which I now realize has to be there in whatever I do for me to feel like to be successful, because I now have a different definition of success. That's when I thought, maybe I should do this.
And you moved to Monaco? At that time?
Moved to Monaco around that time, correct. Just after qualifying actually as a therapist. Then we moved to Monaco about 10 or 11 years ago.
And the intent was to set up Riviera Wellbeing here, or did
Yes.
that just happen accidentally as well?
A bit of both, but it was, I'm going to practice as a therapist in Monaco. So came here, started to kind of think about...
Lots of good clients here, right?
There's good clients everywhere.
Yes.
But yes, we're in a very densely populated area. And in any expat community, unsurprisingly, there's going to be lots of issues around settling in. What does it mean to my identity, my sense of loss, etc.? So there's always going to be work for a therapist in an expat community.
I actually have two questions. So one is, what does the expat add to the layer of issues that people might struggle with? And also, what does Monaco add to the layer of struggles that people might struggle with?
So I think on the first part, I think being an expat there's a sense of grief, because whatever has happened, we have left something behind. So whenever there is an ending, there's grief. So at the end of our podcast, something will have ended and there will be a loss. Now, you and I are probably not going to spend the rest of the day crying about it.
I may.
You may.
I'm having an emotional day. I may just.
I'm so happy he's gone. So there's always going to be a sense of loss. There's something now that we don't have. And so there was a life that we gave up, good and bad. So there's always this sense of how can I get in touch with all of the emotions that would require me to grieve something that I've lost.
So, sorry, just to be clear here, even the loss can be a happy loss, but that would still make you unhappy.
Yes. Because I still have to come to terms with the fact that that's not the life I have anymore. I'm going to grieve more the things, of course, that I lost that I enjoyed. But I have to recognize that change.
I have never heard this for expats. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So and I was thinking about this before I came in. And so, and then there's the disruption to our identity. So I know who I was when I was in London. And I know, so you may have been involved in your local church or a charity, or you may have been on the school board at home. All of us have formed an identity. And a large part of that identity, you arrive somewhere else and you phone up the local school and they say, thanks, we don't need that, but we'll keep you on file. Or where are the local charities? Or maybe I don't speak the language. So we also have to form a new identity when we go to a new place. And that can be very destabilizing. So I think there's those two components. And then there's the relational part. There's the loneliness, which is just, and I don't think we really thought about this, which is just your friends. And however much you might have Zoom and Teams and WhatsApp, but you have left behind a community. And so we have to try and rebuild. Where do we find the connection? We've spoken a lot about connection. So I think all those three things play into any expat community. And then you come to Monaco, and Monaco has, like any other community, things that are going for it that are great and things that are more challenging. I never realized how hard it is to be a woman coming into Monaco. Mm-hmm. And what I heard from women over the years is it feels like a closed circle. How do I break into it? It feels quite, I'd be interested to know, your experience, and particularly for a lot of the young mums felt it's very hard. I don't know how to break into it. Or I need to be perfect. Everybody looks perfect. And if I don't look perfect, I feel that I'm going to be judged. So, and I wish it wasn't the case, but a lot of the times the heterosexual couple, the husband's the breadwinner. A lot of expats have come because his job's here. So he's okay. He's going to work. He's got his identity. He's doing what he always did, just with a new bunch of mates to go out and have beer with. But where is she going to go?
When I moved here in 2000, my brother and his wife and kids came over, and they used this expression for wives, trailing wives. Mm-hmm. And that's a terrible expression, a terrible way to label somebody. Like you're trailing your husband. Yeah. He's the breadwinner, you follow him. And I often thought that was just such an unacceptable way to talk about it's a woman. Yeah. And she has a role too. So they're not trailing each other, they're moving together.
I think I agree. And I think it is sad, and yet that's the reality of what's happened. So I think for a lot of women coming to Monaco, it has its challenges. And then we have to find our place here. And even though I said earlier on, my experience is that most people really don't care what you do or how much money you earn. It's still a place where there is obviously immense wealth. And I think it's a place you have to feel very secure in yourself to live here. Mm-hmm. So I'm fine with saying, okay, well, maybe I'm one of the poorest people in Monaco. That's fine, because I'm not a billionaire and I don't have, my helicopter and my yacht. And if you do, that's fantastic. Can I come on it, by the way? But so I think you really have to find ways to ground yourself in a place that has, I'm not going to say a playground mentality, because like you do, I have so much fondness for Monaco, but you really need to, like any city, you need to be strong and grounded. And there's lots of fun things to do here. And when those fun things become addictive, it's time to think, well, actually, maybe this is not what I should be doing.
What I find quite telling is a lot of times I run into people or I meet new people here, and they've either just moved here or they've been here a couple of years, and they always start with, it's so beautiful and warm and sunny, but And I think, I'm not a therapist, but this is my feeling, is that people feel guilty living here and not being happy, not just in Monaco, but in the south of France, because it's sort of a prized location. And if you're here, there's a reason you're here. And, you could be the envy of your family or the envy of your friends. And yet I find that people aren't happy, but they feel bad they're not happy because they're supposed to be. They're living the dream. They have the sun. They have 360 days of warmth. And they just can't seem to, as you say, find their place. They can't make a friend. And just because we all speak English doesn't mean that we should be friends. That's not enough of a connection. And over the years, I just find it really sad that people say that. It's so sunny and so warm, but I just haven't made friends, or I haven't been able to find my place, or I used to, as you say, I used to be this and I can't do that here and I haven't found something else. And there's a lot of sadness there.
Welcome to Nancy's Corner. No, can I say, I completely agree. I think that when we say I'm going to emigrate and I'm going to go to Australia or Monaco, we then place the expectation on ourselves that we're going to have this perfect life. And again, go back to what we said before, none of us have a perfect life. So it's a bit like kind of New Year's Eve. It never lives up to what it's supposed to. But, my mother used to call it like false gaiety. Like you have to be happy on New Year's Eve. And you're eating cold food and the music's too loud and the smoke's in your face. And so...
the good old days.
And then you look at the bill. So I think it's the same thing, which is I should be happy. And one of the things that would happen a lot in the therapy room, someone will say either I should be happy, or we have a habit of postponing happiness. I'll be happy.
Happiness.
I will be happy when. And it's like, there is no tomorrow. We only have today. So what needs to happen for you to enjoy today? Because we're always looking for the external factor, which is, we now know it's not really what happiness is about. We're looking for this external. So we tell ourselves that when I go to wherever, Monaco, and the sun shines and I'm going to meet all these glamorous people, I will be happy. And we have to give ourselves permission to say, actually, this is still life. And then comparison is really dangerous. And then people will sort of come in the therapy room and say, I should be happy because there's people starving. And I'd say, there are people starving, but so what?
Why is that still a go-to?
Because I don't mean that pejoratively, because it's a way that I get to minimize my pain. Look, it's the way that actually, if I can say I should be happy because there are other people worse off than me, it's a way that I'm just berating myself. Because I would still say to someone, well, actually, from what you've told me today, your husband's having an affair, the kid's just been thrown out of school, you've lost your best friend, so it doesn't seem too good to me. And I would say that to just make them wake up and think, so what you're bringing is, it doesn't matter that there's someone starving. This is your subjective experience. And yes, there is a place for gratitude. I mean, every morning I walk my dogs and I look at the sunrises here, and I mean, you probably see me post that. I have to stop posting them because no one else really cares. But
I care.
There's something about the joy that I get for that. But I can still have a bad day, and I can still have a day where I say, I'm not feeling content today.
I just had this with my husband on the weekend where I woke up and I just said, I'm not myself. There's nothing wrong. I'm not tired. I'm not stressed. Heads up, stay out of my way.
No, he called me. I'm kidding.
But really, it's okay. I mean, the thing is, you can find nature here as well. Like people, it's everything here is shiny and glitzy and diamonds sparkle. But there are the moments you can still connect with nature and ground yourself. And I think it's really important that people don't get so caught up sometimes. But it's hard to be a woman here. It's hard for so many reasons. And there's just no simple solution. I think women need to support women much more than they do here. And that's more for me than just posting on Facebook or Instagram, hey, like it's International Women's Day. It's, creating opportunities for women. I think that's what we need to, as a community, work better at. Because if we can create financial opportunities for women, if we can create any type of opportunity, it validates a woman. And I think here, people need that more.
I completely agree, but I would also add as a man.
Go ahead.
That men.
Gavin.
She's looking very worried. But men can be allies in that too.
Totally
And
agree.
so I absolutely agree with you that if women are saying this is not the most welcoming place by other women, 100%, I think maybe it starts there. But also, we can wake up and we can pay attention to what's happening to our friends or our spouses. And so I think, how many men think about, you're right, it's very glitzy, it's very glamorous. There are certain restaurants here, you're only going to see the very young, good-looking models. And so how often has a middle-aged man said to his middle-aged wife, what's that like for you, honey? When all of these people are walking around.
That is a great point, Gavin. Honestly.
And
how many men say
Yeah.
that to their wives?
yeah, and you can still say, because if assuming it's true, to me, I still find you're still immensely attractive. But all of us, we in our dark moments stand and look in the mirror and it's like, doesn't look like it used to. But in Monaco, we're seeing a lot of the young and the beautiful as we do on social media. So that's why I think there is a role for men to wake up and think about, I wonder what the experience is like. Because let's be honest, men also have it easier and have a choice. I mean, women have a choice, but get judged much more harshly. So there's a reason why all these beautiful women are walking around some of these places. I'll say no more than that.
It is also a little macho here. So things will change. Things will change. So what took you out of then? You sound like you're very gifted at doing the therapy, and you had group therapy here and women's circles, all of this stuff. What took you from that to going into executive coaching?
I think like some of the things in my life, I think it was something that happened sort of to me. And I think I was I'd studied as a coach many years ago. I'd done a kind of coaching qualification. And so I'd always dabbled a little bit in coaching. And then I just got pulled after a year or two after COVID with companies saying, actually, we can see there are some issues here with our team, with our staff. And so, but I knew I didn't necessarily want to do well-being in companies. So I ended up becoming this, I guess, a very psychologically minded coach.
So you had the Riviera Wellbeing is still going?
Riviera Wellbeing is still going. And there are one or two very, very long-standing clients who've been with me for years, and they still will check in once a month. And I will be there for them as long as they take value from having those sessions. But I stopped taking on new therapy clients so that I could make room for the corporate work. And what I became very passionate about, and am very passionate about, is the transition from individual to group, because we also grow and learn very fast in groups. So a lot of the coaching work I do is actually coaching groups and teams, because we are relational beings. We come into the world looking for mum's eyes, the gaze of the eyes, the touch. We get to the age after a few months where we need to be mirrored. I put my tongue out, and then primary caregiver puts their tongue out, and all of that stuff. That we're relational by nature, and people learn very, very fast in groups. So I became very fascinated by what can be achieved when you get a group of 8 to 10 people in a room together and work on their goals and their sort of professional development. And that's sort of, so everything I do in my work, I probably couldn't do the way I do it if I hadn't become a therapist, because I will go very, very quickly to the heart of the issue. So therapy, if I take a step back, therapy is, let's look back at some of your trauma and your wound, and we'll work together in healing it. Coaching is much more, let's take a brief look back and see where this comes from. Okay, now if you need to, take it to therapy to heal, but can you see how this is stopping you being the person you want to be at work, the leader you want to be? We're not going to heal it, but we at least want to pay homage to know where it comes from. Give you a really simple example of, I started working with a very senior executive, and it was our first session, and he kept talking about, he was working in a bank, and he kept talking about his performance, and the bank want this and the bank want that. And I said, slow down slightly. I said, let's, unpack this. I said, by the way, you are the sort of client who used to come to therapy with erectile dysfunction.
Oh
and
my gosh.
he looked at me and he said, "Can I stop you there?" And I thought, oh my God, I've gone too far. I always do this. And he said, "How did you know that I've struggled with that my whole adult life?"
No.
God's honest truth. And I said, "Fred, I had no idea that was. And if it's something you want, I'll recommend a therapist." But what took me to that is you've used the word performance about 20 times. And, when men get very obsessed about their performance in the workplace, it's not that much of a jump to think about, I wonder how this shows up in the bedroom.
You're kidding.
No. And lots of public school boys have been brought up with this, why did you go to Bristol and not Oxford or Cambridge? Make sure you get A stars. You have to perform. And that angst, so for this senior banker, the angst was in the fear that, his whole global group would go down. He wouldn't perform as well. He was the highest performer in the bank and always had been for like the past 12 years. But the angst was my performance may suffer. So my point is that and then I had his respect, but my psychology training took me to go there very quickly. So the coach I am, even though I'm not going to work with him on his ED, gives me such an important insight into where does this come from? What's this about? And we'll get there very quickly so that we can then say, right, what does good look like? What does success look like for you at work?
When I mentioned earlier that I heard you speaking at CREM, and one of the stories you shared stuck with me and actually struck a chord, and I'll probably get the details wrong, so you'll have to correct me here. It was a young woman that was working on a sales team, and she was very good, and she kept getting promoted to lead the teams she would build the teams. The team would be the best in their company, the best in the country. And then she found she was just growing tired of it. And the point that you had made was when she was growing up, she was a disruptor in her family. She was a rebel. And so she thrived being that person, but then she no longer wanted to be that person anymore. And for whatever reason, the way that you described her work activity and connecting it back to this disruptor really did resonate with me. When you look back as a young person, the kind of personality you have in your family and how that plays a role into maybe the confidence you have in your job. Or I'd never really put all those things together. And I think because you had that therapy background and the coaching together, you were able to explain that in a way to us that that particular night that really helped people understand those roles. And how do you break free from those identities?
Yeah, thank you for I'm glad the story touched you, and I do remember.
Did I get any of the details right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so the how we are in our family of origin, we often unconsciously repeat in the workplace, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. But there's something around, very often it is an identity blind spot. This is who I am. I'm a disruptor, and I perform really well when you take me into teams that need shaking up. And in this particular case, she got, it wasn't necessarily promoted, but the team, I think it actually was promotion. The team she got to head up didn't need massive change management. The team was, you're doing so well, you know how to get a team performing. So now we're giving you this global team. And she struggled because where's the hiring and firing? This is what I've done my whole life. And she remembered back to her childhood, not being seen by her parents, how she had to rebel. And all of her life, she's been a disruptor. So we take these identities into the workplace. So to your point, how do we then, first we have to recognize that what's my identity? How is it that I see myself and others see me in the workplace? I may think I know, but actually I can't really know unless I really invite for some feedback as to how I'm seen in the workplace. And then I can start to join the dots and think about, okay, so is this role aligned with my identity? Because if this role requires me to be, if I see myself as a disruptor, but this role requires someone who's a stabilizer, I'm going to need to adjust or I'm in the wrong role. So it's always for me about getting curious about what did you learn in your family of origin? How has this impact? How was success dealt with? How did mom and dad deal with your grades? Was it always, they just expected me to do well, or they pushed me much harder, or they didn't really care? Whichever one of those scenarios it is, it's going to have an impact on how I perform in the workplace. So that's why for me, I'm always fascinated by what is it that's happened in the past that's impacting on the present so that I can unlock the future.
So really, you've come full circle in your career.
By complete accident, but yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And as I understand, you spent a lot of time in London doing the coaching to CEOs and executives, but you also have found the time to launch the Monaco Business Circle here, which is for executives or business owners in the Principality?
Yes. So what I wanted not to do was set up a networking event, because there are lots of those here.
There's a few.
There's a few, and after a while, we all go to them as expats when we first get here, and we must join and meet people, and they become a bit dull after a while. So I didn't want it to be another networking event. But what I do recognize is that Monaco, firstly, can be very lonely because it's a small place. We care about what our peers think. And if you then add to that, if you are interested in business, running a business, it's very lonely. Particularly as you get more senior, the channels for feedback shrink. It's very hard. The boss says, go on, give me some feedback. There's a power imbalance there. So, of course, there are ways that we can give feedback, but actually, it's like watching the politician get more and more senior. And eventually, the number of people that will really tell that politician or that business person, this is your raw spot. This is where you need to do some work. So I wanted to create a space where a small number of entrepreneurs can come together.
This is invitation only.
Invitation only, and grow and be vulnerable. And nobody has to share anything. But people tend to, goes back to the example I was giving earlier on about when one person starts, someone else usually reciprocates. So we meet every kind of 6 weeks. We have a breakfast, a creme, and then it's usually like might be a topic. And then people will I might share for 10, 15 minutes on, here's some leadership theory. What does it mean to you? How has this shown up for you at the workplace? And it's amazing what people will share when they feel safe. And they'll say, there's nowhere else to do this. There's nowhere else where I can grow and I have personal and professional development. My company's not interested. The bank isn't interested. It's very hard to be vulnerable in Monaco because it's so small. So it's just this space where we can have a space to grow and reflection. We're all so busy. So when do we find this time to do some personal reflection? And because it's a group, it's a very small group, but because it's a group, again, that's the power of people learning from each other.
And you co-founded that with Irene Luke?
From Savills. And Irene has been a supporter of some of the events we've done. And it's just, they are such a, Irene, and her personal philosophy as well as Savills is, how do we give back to the community? And
my kind of gal.
Yeah, absolutely. And sure, that Savills has their name out there and I have my name out there. Of course, there's a commercial aspect to it. But it was never about it. We've never, ever spoken. Not once have I said to Irene, it's very interesting. I have said, has anything come from this? She hasn't asked me. Because I don't care and she doesn't care. There is something here which is, it's good enough that people will see her name and my name. That's it. Mm-hmm. And we don't charge. And we ask people for a nominal entrance fee and that goes to charity. Mm-hmm. And so there's just something about creating the community.
Do you choose a different charity every time? Or
we haven't. We've done this as the second year, and we've chosen to do again with Childcare Monaco because we just both really like them. Irene's traveled, I think, to India,
with Martine
at least on one occasion with Martine
mm-hmm.
Ackerman, and been to one of the schools that were built there and developed for underprivileged kids. So it was a charity very close to her heart as well.
Well, let's just wrap things up with Monaco. Let's talk a little bit about what really brought you here. I know that you came and you opened Riviera Wellbeing, mm-hmm. but had you been to Monaco? What was it about here, other than obvious reasons that some people come for? What was it about Monaco that made you choose it and call it home?
I think 2 reasons. Close enough to the UK, because I always knew that I will probably end up still having business interests in the UK, which proved to be the case. My husband's Italian, and we're close enough to his family. So geographically, actually not just, these were 2 of the primary reasons. Mm-hmm. Geographically, it's perfect for us. And we go back and forth to Italy and London a lot. And then there was just the getting to know Monaco, which took time. You've probably heard me say this before. So many years ago, my parents lived in Monaco. And when they lived here, I hated it. And I thought it was full of old people, probably my age. But it was, I almost wanted just to hate it because they lived here, just to be a difficult,
The disruptor of the family.
Exactly. I wasn't even a teenager, so I was just difficult. So I never really liked it. In fairness to me, it has changed.
Okay.
And I'm much nicer. So it was familiar. So I knew that there was a part of it. And we came here and we just said, look, this is obviously the whole French Riviera is just very special. And what's the worst that can happen? Let's give it a year. If we don't like it, we'll go back to the UK because we were living in the UK. And I don't think we ever saw further than just a few years. I think it was supposed to be an adventure. I don't think we really thought we would have roots 10 years on. Mm-hmm. It was just, let's have an adventure. And it wasn't driven by financial reasons. And of course, for all of us, there are some financial benefits, but it was never actually a driving factor.
So what's kept you here?
The opportunity to be here with you, Nancy.
Well, that's such a given that I just thought most people get that part. What do you love about it?
It sounds so glib. I want to say I love the weather because everyone says, but I really love the weather. You and I had the very British, I'm British, conversation just before about the weather. So we're recording this in early February, and it's 16 degrees outside and sunny. And the first thing we both said to each other is, I'm sweating, and I have my scarf and
because there's been no sun. All of a sudden, it just peeked its head.
So,
sweating.
So I do love the climate, and I love the fact that I love the cachet of living in Monaco. Of course I do. And people, you live in Monaco. So there is a bit of that. I do.
What do they ask you about that?
Well, they just sort of, I don't know, people are very fascinated by it. So have you anybody famous, or has anyone famous been your clients? And the answer is, yes to both, but I can't really
answer that. Yeah.
So I can't tell you. So I think people are just fascinated by Monaco, but also the perception is so, do you not find so inaccurate? Everybody only thinks about money and it doesn't always have a good reputation. And then when you talk about some of the community stuff that Monaco does, or Prince Albert's work on the global stage and his commitment to the environment and to climate change, and then people look at it a bit differently. And if only people knew how hard it is here. I think people have a really negative view about the financial system. And it's like, I can't move money from one bank account to the other without 100 questions, So I don't know what it was 20, 30 years ago. But what I know today is that, this is, for me, my experience of Monaco is very positive from a business, from an ethical point of view, from seeing how much care the government has towards Monegasques. Mm-hmm. And I get that maybe it's easier because it's smaller than, say, looking at like the UK, for example. But this is a place that looks after its people, don't you think, in a way that's just unique?
There's two things that always stand out to me as generalisms about Monaco. You can do it in Monaco because it's small. It's so easy. Nothing is easy.
Yeah.
Anything a government implements in any country is never easy. And the other thing is, I feel like people want bad things to happen to the people that live here. There's something about the money and the wealth and what people's perception of our privileged lifestyle is, and they're just waiting for it to all crumble. And I don't know why. I don't know what kind of satisfaction that gives people, but it's always on the surface for outsiders.
Yeah, I think that's true. And look, with money, whether the money is in the richest parts of the UK or whether it's in the Emirates, or of course, sometimes with money comes abuse of power and corruption. Now, how a government chooses to deal with that, that's the bit that matters. Yeah. And from everything I see, it deals with it very seriously. And the way I always look about living in Monaco is, this is an invitation to live here. So accept the invitation and behave well, and you can live here.
Yeah.
But the moment you behave badly, that invitation will be withdrawn. And I think there's something for me that's very comforting, because I hope I never do anything that requires the invitation to be withdrawn. So for me, I think that's wonderful.
I just want to ask you one question before we say goodbye. And that was about the Wellbeing Window show that you did that was just so popular. Yeah. And really, people genuinely loved hearing you on Riviera Radio. Was that a fun experience for you, having a show?
I loved it.
How long did it run?
I think it was about 2 years.
And it was, what was the format? Just to let listeners
when
know.
we first started talking about it, I was talking about it with Riviera Radio, and they said, we cannot have a therapy show on the radio. We do not want people like, committing suicide over the cornflakes. This will be really depressing. And I said, well, I'm going to kid you not. And I wanted to have a phone in, and that probably was a mistake because rightly so. I said, well, no one can phone it. You have to understand, Gavin, it's too small a community. So unless someone puts on a funny voice and says, hello, and that would be that's Gavin with a funny voice. But then we sort of worked out, let's pick a topic. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about, we did ones on sex. We did ones on addiction. And then if people want to write in, they can write in anonymously. And it just snowballed. And we started off, and we kept it fun because the host of Riviera Radio is, as you know, so incredibly down to earth and funny. And so we found a way that, you can really deal with really difficult issues lightly. And so you can have, as we've had a laugh, but we've spoken about real life. So we found a way, I think, a formula, which is credit, I think, to Sarah Lysett and to Rob in the beginning, because they just have that down-to-earth way of, which I think is such a skill, that you can take something that is so weighted and serious, and then the next minute you can go to something light. And so I think it just became a way for people to listen in. And the amount of people that would say, actually, I didn't write in, but I've listened to that show again and again. I mean, the one on boundaries is one of the most, and the one on narcissism. People have said, I have listened to that show so many times because it spoke to me. And I loved the fact that I had a medium that could reach, connect with, and help people, which is, what you do in a different way through your various different work. You reach people, you touch people.
That's kind, thank you.
But that's the stuff that gets me out of bed in the morning.
I get you out of bed in the morning, Gavin.
That's the sort of stuff that gets me out of bed
I think
in the
on
morning.
that note, we're just going to say thanks for coming on Monaco Info, the podcast, Gavin Sharpe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.